Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, joining me as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And I opened up the cereal box of love, everybody, and the new toy of Robert Meyer Burnett was staring me right in the face. Robert Meyer Burnett, how you doing today, sir?
I'm 1/6 scale today, apparently. So thank you, thank you for that. I that was the best introduction I've ever had, John.
1/6 scale, I like that. Hey, before we get started and everything else here, I wanted to throw something by you that came up during the live questions part of the show yesterday and get your kind of take on it. You know, somebody wrote in yesterday and said, you know, with everybody that complains about, you know, Superman in Man of Steel snapping Zod's neck, which he absolutely had to do. At any rate, you know, he said, you know, a lot of people, you don't hear a lot of these people complaining about him killing Zod in Superman 2. And I said, well, yeah, that's true. And of course, but there was a director's cut where it kind of implies that maybe Zod didn't die and all that. But I said, here is my point, Rob. If you want to talk about doing things on a film level that are radically inconsistent with the character of Superman. The thing that nobody talks about is in Superman 2, and it's not him killing Zod, even though, you know, Zod was completely powerless. But to me, it's the ending of the movie.
I've been working out.
Yes, the ending of the movie. For those of you who don't know, at the end of Superman 2, because earlier in the film, Superman had lost his powers, ran into this truck driver, and the truck driver beat him up. So later now in the movie, Superman's got his powers back. He is Superman. He is the invincible, immortal, godlike being walking amongst mortal men. And Superman decided he wanted revenge. And he goes back to that diner, him, a living, walking god, to a completely helpless, completely powerless mortal.
Probably Canadian.
Probably Canadian, judging by the clothes he was wearing. Breaks his bones, throws him across the room, smashing into a pinball machine, knocking him out, probably concussing him, could have killed him. All because it was a helpless, had posed no threat to him because he wanted revenge. Now, I mentioned on the show that for me as a viewer, there was something very viscerally satisfying with it to see that dick get his due, right? But really, to me, when you think about it, that was the most inconsistent with Superman's character thing I've ever seen Superman. I don't know. But ever since I came up yesterday, I've been dying to know what you would think of that. What do you think of that little approach?
It was small, it was petty, it was not consistent with Superman's character, but it was still awesome.
It was. It was satisfying.
I'll tell you, I've always thought it analogous to what Superman does to the truck driver. Like when Superman impales that semi-truck in Man of Steel, he doesn't actually hurt somebody. You know, he hurts their belonging. And in Superman 2, like, he straight up goes back to exact revenge. It's not like he's doing it publicly. This was something he was doing because he wanted to. He wanted to go back and humiliate that particular dude because he was humiliated.
And physically harm him. And physically harm him.
So yes, you know what? You've just given me fodder to combat the Man of Steel complainants. But
I still do like the scene. I still do like the scene.
I mean, I like the scene, but you know what? I've never actually thought about it until you just asked me. But it's you're right. Straight up petty, not cool, not worthy of Superman.
Kind of a bit of a dick.
A bit. Total dick. I mean, how far did he have to walk to get to that diner? A long way.
Okay, listen, guys. Listen, we actually have a mountain of stuff that we need to talk about here. So we're going to get to that. But just before we jump in, I want to remind you guys that, hey, listen, if you want your fix of the John Campea Show, but you're not always in front of your computer, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're commuting, good news, there is the John Campea Show podcast, which is the audio-only version of this show. You can go and find that on your streaming app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so you got it all loaded up there on the times that you needed it. Also, a lot of people asking me and stuff like that, hey, John, where can I get those shirts? Where can I get those coffee mugs? The other good news is we've got the John Campea Show merch store. So you can just go to thejohncampeashow.com/shop. That's thejohncampeashow.com/shop. You can go there and find the merch and all the various different things that we have there. And thank you guys for all of you who have been interested in that, and go sign up for the podcast today. All right, guys, listen, before we get into our main topics, we do have a couple of things here that we need to talk about right off the top. And we're going to start off the top with this. Now, we are, of course, in the midst of what we are calling the era of the streaming wars, right? For a long time, Netflix had the playground to itself. Then came Hulu, Amazon Prime, a number of others, Crunchyroll, a whole bunch of different ones. Now we've entered into a new stage of that where we've got HBO Max, we've got Disney Plus, we've got NBC Peacock. Or do we really have NBC Peacock? The release numbers just came out for NBC Peacock, and I thought this was interesting. Now, I don't think any of us expected NBC Peacock to come out of the gate and have as many subscribers as, say, Disney did in its first 6 days, right? But the numbers are a little bit lower than even I expected. As we take a look at this thing here right now, NBC Peacock launched, and in its first 6 days, had 1.5 million people install its app. Now, you got to remember, too, most of these people are installing a free version. It's free. There are paid levels, but a big chunk of NBC Universal's Peacock is free. It doesn't even cost anything to do it. But here's the main thing. This comes to us from TechCrunch, which wrote this. For comparison's sake, that 1.6 million downloads in the first 6 days is only 25% more than Quibi launched with. And we talked about what a disaster that launch was. Only 25% more than Quibi did, but here's the key number. But only 12% of the 13 million downloads that Disney Plus generated in its 6 days. Now, again, I'm not saying any of us should have expected that, say, NBC Universal would have launched immediately with the same kind of reflective numbers that we were going to see with Disney Plus. Not at all. We understand those numbers are going to be different. But they only got 12%. And that's with a free level of their service. Rob, I took a look at this and I thought, wow, that is lower than even I thought it was going to be. You had a chance to see these numbers. What's your initial reaction to hearing that?
Well, I've been the most ardent supporter of Quibi. Just kidding. They're not good, John. I mean, they're not good. And what I don't understand is, again, why the support that these channels like Quibi came out of the gate, you couldn't watch it on a TV. And I've heard that there's not that quite lack of support, but also Peacock has a problem being viewed on various devices. And it blows me away. Like the one thing that a streaming service needs to be able to do is stream and stream everywhere. And if you can't do that, whether it's an HDMI connection or Roku or whatever deal hasn't been made, why did you launch? Why would you launch your streaming service if it can't be viewed by everybody? And I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like to your point, they launched, without support, much like HBO Max did. They launched without support on the two biggest streaming platforms in the world, Roku and Amazon Fire Stick, and they created no buzz. They created no buzz going into their launch.
And you'd think with a stupid name like Peacock, they would be able to spin that into something ridiculous so everybody would have to tune in. But no, Peacock just becomes kind of when I say the word, I don't smile, I don't laugh, I just feel sad.
All right, guys, the question is, what do you think about these? I don't think there's any way to spin it other than disappointing launch numbers for NBC Universal's Peacock. Now, this is still a service that has a lot of promise. It can evolve into something really, really cool. But what do you attribute to the fact that it had such a slow start? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's go to another thing off the top, and that is this. Now, of course, Rob, a couple of years ago, my number one absolute favorite movie of the year was John Krasinski's A Quiet Place.
No.
Absolutely loved that movie. That year, my favorite movie was Quiet Place. My second favorite movie was Black Klansman. My third favorite movie was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. But anyway, I was just reminiscing a bit there. Well, to nobody's surprise. Back when there were movies,
John.
Back when there were movies. To nobody's surprise right now, of course, Quiet Place was supposed to be in theaters already. A Quiet Place then got bumped, but they have now bumped it again. It is now being pushed, I believe, to April of 2021, if I understood it right. Yes, it will release on April 23rd, 2021, instead of in September of 2020. Now, there could be a number of things behind this. Number one, of course, is the situation with the movie theaters and the lockdown. Could just be that they thought, you know what, this might just be a better April release than not. I'm sure there's a number of factors that are all true at the same time working into this. At this point, it almost feels silly. And by the way, Top Gun also got pushed to summer of 2021. It was going to come out in December. Top Gun is now pushed to summer of 2021. That's a summer movie anyway. So that one makes sense to me. But at this point, it almost feels moot to talk about movies being moved because that's what happens today. But I will say this. Yeah, that's what it feels like. But we'll talk about that a little bit more a little bit later. It does bring up, just for me, though, Quiet Place 2. This still remains, if not my number one most anticipated movies out of the movies that aren't out there right now. It's certainly right up there. What John Krasinski and Emily Blunt and that team did with that first Quiet Place, I am still shocked when I look at it. Especially when you consider they built so much tension, so much fear, so much terror with no dialogue for a lot of it. It wasn't until you got into the later part of the movies that you actually got a good look at the monsters. So they did it all sight unseen. You know, they built that terror. It reminded me a lot of what was the M. Night movie with the alien invasion.
Signs.
And Signs. One of the great things about Signs, despite the fact that it had a little bit of a weak ending, was the fact that they took you through the whole movie without actually ever showing you the monsters, other than in brief little glimpses.
Which was awesome.
It was so good the way they did that. And I found a lot of that in The Quiet Place as well. I've been dying to see. I thought the first trailers for Quiet Place 2 have been insane. So little disappointed about the bump. April does seem like a better release date for it anyway, but it remains one of my most anticipated upcoming movies. Rob, you hear about the move. Where is your anticipation level right now for something like A Quiet Place 2?
Well, you know, A Quiet Place was a perfect premise, executed perfectly. So, and you have the same creative team coming back. I mean, I would expect this could be the Empire Strikes Back of the Quiet Place franchise. At least that's what I'm hoping for. And don't you want it to be? Because I think it should be cool. I just think that, John, I don't know if I'm going to stop myself from hanging myself here in my little Robservatory because I'm so depressed about not seeing any movies in 2020. It bums me out. I understand it. I get it. But my ongoing lingering depression might not get me through. Might not get me through as much as I want to see Justice for Han, John. I am very upset about 2020. Why does it have to be us?
Yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate, but again, I don't think any of us are surprised by this anymore. No. Spider-Man, the third Spider-Man film, we also just recently got bumped. It was still a little ways off, granted. But we haven't even seen
Black Widow. I mean, I wanted to see Eternals. We don't even have a trailer. And I'm like,
to be fair, it would still be a little bit early for an Eternals trailer.
Wasn't Eternals coming out in November?
I thought it was December.
Maybe December, but it's July, dude. It's the 7th month of the year.
That's still 5 months away. That's still 5 months away. It's too early to be dropping trailers.
Oh man, you know what? I just want, my favorite franchises: James Bond, gone. You know, the MCU, 2 MCU movies, gone. I mean,
they're coming. Don't worry, they're coming.
I know, but I might get hit by a bus or have a heart attack or develop terminal cancer. I mean, I don't know. You don't know. I mean, I have less knowledge about my own health and well-being than I do about when these movies have been taken away from me and when they're going to show up. I mean, now I have to survive for another year. I mean, that's tough, man. In this day and age.
But it gives you a reason to hold on. It gives you a reason to hold on.
Yes, I know. But if somebody comas me out and puts me on a ventilator, where am I going to be?
All right. Question is, guys, if you're not on a ventilator already, what do you think about this move of A Quiet Place 2? Obviously disappointing, but I don't think any of us can be surprised at this point when we hear news about movies getting moved and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts? Where's your anticipation level for A Quiet Place 2 right now? Jump on down to the comment section below and leave us your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to one more off the top, and that one is this. Now, one of the movies that a lot of people had a lot of excitement about, and it came out and actually wasn't a bad little movie, was Sonic the Hedgehog. I didn't think it was great, but it wasn't bad. I actually enjoyed it. I had a good time watching Sonic the Hedgehog. My wife actually liked it quite a bit. Now, the movie wasn't exactly a big smash hit. It just cleared I think it made like $305 million worldwide. Not exactly a big hit, but good enough. And with the audience reception of the first one and the fact that it had a really exciting little ending that Sonic fans would know and enjoy, it's not a big surprise that they have now come out and made it actually official by giving it a date. Now, we knew they were going to do a Sonic 2 anyway already, but they've now given it a date. April of 2022, we're going to get Sonic 2. And that's on its way. And Rob, it's not often you can talk about movies that make $300 million at the box office worldwide and think, well, that's a guarantee getting a sequel. But there was something about the nature of that character and the kind of fun, whimsical delightfulness of the movie itself. Again, I have criticisms about the movie, but overall, I had a good time watching that movie. Much better time than I thought I was going to have. When you get those sorts of combinations and you kind of create a credibility with your audience, that gives you a lot of confidence that you can move into another one and have some success, even if the first one didn't exactly break the bank. I like this move. I can't believe I'm saying this. At least I can believe it today, but if you'd asked me a year ago, I wouldn't believe I'm saying this. I am actually personally looking forward to a Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I think this could be fun. It sounds like a good release date for it. 2 years from now seems a little ambitious with putting a movie like that together, but it's not out of the realm of normalcy, so they can get that in there. Anyway, I like this news. Rob, you hear about this. Does it make a lot of sense?
I look, the fact that anyone's still making movies at all gives me joy. And as far as this movie is concerned, I won't believe it until there's a fan backlash to redesign Sonic again. It's so no. I look, the fact that Sonic actually was for me too, I found it very palatable, which I thought was not going to be the case. But I think it's great. You know, the fact that people liked it, the fact that a generation embraced it, the fact that more people are going to get to work on the sequel. I'm curious, will James come back?
He has to. Listen, because I tell you unapologetically, Sonic's delightful. That's all great. Jim Carrey made that movie. There are other things were great too. There were other good things about it. I'm not saying that there weren't, but Jim Carrey made that. You have to have. I just can't see doing another one without having to come back. Can you?
I mean, he's as indelible as he was in Ace Ventura. You can't. I don't think you can make a Sonic movie without him being in it. I'm sure he'll be in it. But I think it's great. I think it's great that they're making it. If they can get it out in 2 years, I mean, they can redesign Sonic the Hedgehog and get that movie into theaters. I think the people behind those films, or films now it's a franchise, are amazing. So good for them. Good on them.
All right, guys, the question for you now is, what do you think about this? Not a huge surprise. We were kind of expecting Sonic 2, but now it's official. They've got a release date, April 2022. Are you looking forward to it? What did you think about the first one? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all those off the tops out of the way, let's now move into the main body of the show. And the rest of the show is going to be broken into two parts. One, we're going to do our main topics, and then we're going to take your live questions a little bit later in the show. How do you get a comment or question in the live questions? Well, it's easy. Simply use the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video. Just click on it there, or you can enter it manually, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show, and you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. But first, we're going to go in and now take our main topics. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. Hit submit. It's totally free. And then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Russell Amador, who writes, well, the New Mutants presentation has come and gone. Of course, New Mutants just did a panel at the Comic-Con at home yesterday. The New Mutants presentation has come and gone with no indication of VOD release, as they still seem bent on a theatrical release. But they did show some new footage. The footage was something to hold the fans over, and as someone who's been impatiently waiting for its release, it did not disappoint. Did you get a chance to watch the new footage? Has the excitement increased or decreased? Thanks. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, a lot of people were waiting very anxiously for the New Mutants panel yesterday because a lot of people expected to get some firm announcements about when this movie's going to come and where it's going to come. Some people thought they were going to move it on to VOD. I've been saying for a couple of weeks, don't expect that to happen, although it wasn't impossible, but there were contractual obligations in the way and all that kind of stuff. So unsurprisingly, they're keeping it to theatrical release. However, what did surprise me was the fact that they have announced they are keeping the August 28th release date. If you've watched my show for the last little bit, I have said, well, one of the things that we know 100% for sure was going to happen at this panel is they're going to announce a brand new release date. That much for sure is going to happen. Wrong. They didn't. They're keeping the August 28th release date according to them. Anyway, this report comes to us from The Verge, who writes, The New Mutants is apparently still on track to hit theaters on August 28th, even as Tenet and Mulan face indefinite delays. We'll talk about the Mulan one in just a minute. Details on the film's theatrical plans come from the New Mutants panel at Comic-Con at Home, the digital version of the annual San Diego Festival, where the cast gathered to talk about the film. The panel opens with a cheeky reminder that the movie would open in theaters on August 28th. It should also be mentioned that in this announcement, where this graphic opens August 28th, they had these little fingers crossed images on there too, saying fingers crossed. But yeah, I was shocked. I mean, I knew they were going to keep a theatrical, but I was shocked to hear that they were going to keep the August 28th release date. There's two different ways of looking at this. The first way of looking at this is, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, Mulan just moved. Everything else is moving. We just had September movies, Quiet Place 2. We just had September movies get moved. We're talking August 28th. Now, granted, that's still a month and a half away. We're a little over a month away now. It's just a little over a month away now. So I get it. That's fine. But while everything else, Tenet just moved out, Mulan just moved out, Quiet Place moved, everything's moving back. And yet they say they're going to keep August 28th. So that's the one part of my brain. But Rob, I actually have another theory about why they very well may keep this August 28th date. So here's my theory. Tell me what you think about this.
Intriguing.
There are, right now as we speak, a number of movie theaters are open across our country. As of right now, there are. As of right now, AMC Theaters is saying they are going to reopen their doors mid-August. Do they stick to that? That's another question. But right now, for any rate, chains like Regal, AMC, they're still saying they're going to be open at some point in August, whether that's mid to late, whatever. We also know that this movie has been, for all, intents and purposes, cursed. This movie's been cursed. This movie finished production over 3 years ago. They finished making this movie over 3 years ago. It has been delayed and delayed and delayed. Rob, here's my theory right now about what they might be thinking. Disney is, I think, committed to making this thing theatrical. They have contractual obligations to making this thing theatrical. Here's my thought. Disney may be looking at New Mutants just thinking, you know what? hell or high water, whatever theaters there are open on August 28th, it's time. It's time. This is what I'm thinking are the conversations going on over at Disney right now. It's just time. It's years and years this thing has been delayed. Let's just take on August 28th, let's fulfill our contractual obligations. Let's take whatever movie theaters there are that are open. We understand we're going to take a hit, but this is a movie that got produced before we even took over Fox. At some point, we got to get this out. We've got to meet our contractual obligations. Let's just take whatever theaters do have their doors open, whether that's 400 theaters, whether that's 1,000 theaters, whether that's 200 theaters, and let's just release it. And then 3 or 4 months later, after the theatrical window is done and we fulfilled our contractual obligations, then let's put it out on streaming after that. So that way we've put it out theatrically. We've done our part to help support the theaters. We've met our obligations to all the people we signed a contract saying that this will get a theatrical release. And it means in 3 or 4 months, then we can put it out on VOD. So it may not actually be all that crazy that they may actually be looking at doing this for August 28th. Still a massive, massive chance, though, that it gets bumped again. But I don't know, Rob, you heard the announcement. You've heard my crazy theory. What do you think about all this, and where do you think they may land on this right now?
Well, first of all, I watched the panel, and it started out, the panel started out with them making fun of the release date changes.
Yes.
It was awesome. And I think you're probably bang on with your theory. I think look, Disney didn't pay for this movie. They're not incurring interest charges, or maybe they are. I mean, they already bought Fox.
Yes, they are now. Yeah, they're responsible for the debts now.
I think that here's a film of all movies, it's the last vestige of a franchise that they want to reboot anyway. I mean, you think Kevin Feige's like, every time you delay New Mutants, that means that's harder for me to have my mutant franchise or whatever. But I think you're right. I think that if nothing else, Disney has a product that people want to see that is minimal financial risk to them. No one's going to have egg on their face if it doesn't make money. But it shows goodwill to all the exhibitors around the world. They're getting a new film, and I think for right now, the theaters that are open, they're all about a friend of mine in Germany went and saw Unhinged, the Russell Crowe film in Germany. Right. He had to fill out a form. I
remember you telling me about this.
And so the theaters that are open are going to be practicing the best kind of social distancing. I think that this is a win for everyone. It's a win for me because, damn it, John, I just want to go into a theater and see a movie. And I love the New Mutants. And the Demon Bear storyline, I wanted to see this movie. Every time I see clips from it, I get that much more aroused, John. This movie's exciting to me. I can't wait to see it. Please release it. And please put it out in August. Please, I just want to go to the movie theater again.
Speaking of the Demon Bear and speaking of clips, about 24 minutes into that panel, they showed us the opening scene of New Mutants and a new kind of teaser cut after it. Look, I know there's been a lot of question marks. I know there've been a lot of question marks around New Mutants. I don't care. This looked awesome.
Right?
I thought it looked fantastic. You and I haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, but I thought it looked incredible.
Dude, I mean, look, Josh Boone is a great director. And the fact that he did this, and think about this. I think about this a lot. I pondered this a lot. So Josh Boone directed New Mutants. You know what else he directed? The remake, the miniseries, The Stand, which is about a global pandemic destroying the world. The poor guy makes New Mutants, and then his next project is a giant miniseries about a global pandemic. If anybody needs some goodwill, Josh Boone needs it. I will go just to support him.
I decided to make this the topic of today's question of the day, and I put it to you guys and wanted to ask you. So earlier I put up a poll in the community tab of the YouTube channel and asking you guys simply this. Disney just announced at Comic-Con the New Mutants is still planning on opening on August 28th. Will it? Almost 5,000 of you guys have voted. Only 20% of you guys are saying, yes, it's going to open on time. 80% of you are saying no, it'll get bumped again. I'd be curious to take this poll again now that I've made my little theory known that, you know what? I think they will, just to put it in theaters, just to fulfill their contractual obligations, and then they can put it up on streaming in 3 or 4 months, having played by all the rules and kept everybody happy. I'd be curious to take this poll again to see if you guys agree. But anyway, that's there right now. But for now, I want to know, what do you guys think? Do you think there is a chance that they could meet this August 28th date and just put it out in whatever theaters are still there? Or do you think, nah, cooler heads are going to prevail, they're going to bump it again? I just don't know if you're going to bump it. Why not announce it at Comic-Con? But anyway, where are you guys thinking about that right now? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by the weakest Avenger, who writes, Mulan has become the latest film to be pulled, quote unquote, indefinitely from the release schedule. I guess we can't say it's any sort of surprise with Tenet moving. Do you think they can still release something sometime in 2020? Why can't we just do what Japan did? They never had a lockdown and they're almost completely back to normal now. What do you think? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie. I get a little bit downhearted when I look at how other countries have dealt with the situation and done it properly. Like Japan, after I got this question, I went and did some reading on it. Japan is a country that has almost 100% adoption of wearing face masks everywhere amongst its population, nearly 100%. And even though the United States doesn't even have 3 times the amount of population that Japan does, they have over 100 times more cases and deaths from COVID. As a matter of fact, Japan just announced the end of the state of emergency. They just announced the end of their state of emergency. I mean, so it is a little thing. Do I think they can still get this thing out in 2020? Yes, I still think they can. Will they is another question. But let's go over and look at the situation right now. This comes to us from Variety. A representative from Disney said this talking about Mulan. Oh, and specifically asked, why not give a new release date right now? They said this: over the past few months, it has become clear that nothing can be set in stone when it comes to how we release films during this global health crisis. And today, that means pausing our release plans for Mulan as we assess how we can most effectively bring this film to audiences around the world. That, of course, comes from a representative at Disney. And Rob, I don't think this was really any sort of surprise to anybody. Especially once Tenet moved, it only became an academic matter about when does Mulan announce that they're moving. I mean, really at that point, it was just a matter of when do they announce it? Because they've really kind of tied themselves, schedule out. They've moved whenever Tenet has moved. Tenet made their move. We knew Mulan was going to move. And right now, they're not even saying at this moment when they think they're going to be able to put it out. Maybe it's naive. I still believe that 2020 is on the board. I'm not saying definitely. I'm just saying I think it's still on the board because we still have 6 months left in the year, 5 months left in the year. It's possible they could. They want to. Whether they will actually be able to do that or not, that's another question. But it just becomes, again, a situation of none of us are surprised anymore. It's almost not even worth it anymore to talk about this stuff. A movie gets bumped. Yeah, that's like a daily occurrence at this point. But Mulan was significant because it and Tenet kind of became those, canaries in the coal mine for us. Right. We've been seeing wherever they go, those 2 movies go, that kind of tells us what the conditions are right now. And so it moving is rather significant. Anyway, Rob, I'm sure no surprise, but you hear about the official moving of Mulan. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we talked about this a lot on the show. These films they're so expensive that they need to recoup. We're talking $800 million to $1 billion. And the only way they can do that is with a massive worldwide release in movie theaters. And it becomes academic. They don't have a choice. And whether it's No Time to Die, whether it's Tenet, whether it's Mulan, these films require the global box office to survive. I mean, Disney, they can't afford to release this film on their streaming service. It has to make money. So unfortunately, this was not unexpected, and they need China and they need the US. And it's they don't have a choice.
It's not the popular thing to say, but I think I've been looking forward to Mulan as much as Tenet. I've just only because I was really
great.
I think it looks
so
beautiful.
Good.
Yeah. So I've been looking forward to it almost as much. I'll say close, almost as much as Tenet. So it's disappointing to hear. Question here is, guys, any surprise? I mean, really, none of us surprised to hear this, but it is, again, the canary in the coal mine. It has moved now. When it will actually finally come out, Disney's not willing to say yet. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right. With that down, let's now move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Bill 4, who writes, "Hey, John and gang." Hey, Bill. "Disney shuffled many dates yesterday. Most importantly, Avatar and Star Wars have both been pushed back a year, and Mulan is following Tenet's lead, being delayed indefinitely. Do you think this is a sign of things to come for other big Disney films like Black Widow or Soul as well? Thanks. Love the show." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And I mean, who knows? Black Widow is still a ways off, so we'll deal with Black Widow a little bit later. But Black Widow right now isn't scheduled to come out, August, September, October. It isn't scheduled to come out for another 4 months. So we don't know what's going to happen next week, let alone 4 months from now. So let's talk about Black Widow a little bit later. I was a little surprised to see the news come across the wire about Star Wars in particular and Avatar, because according to this, we're not going to get another Star Wars movie until 2023. And Avatar 2, which we have already been waiting a decade for, has been pushed back as well. This comes to us from the folks at Variety, who write the following: "The studio still plans to dominate moviegoing around the holidays, around the Christmas holidays, when theaters are hopefully able to reopen. Each year between 2022 and 2028, Disney will release a new Star Wars movie adventure or Avatar follow-up. A trio of Star Wars movies will debut around Christmas every other year, starting in 2023. 3.5 years from now. 3.5 years from now. The first of these 3 films will launch on December 22nd, 2023, and 2 follow-ups will hit theaters December 19th, 2025, and December 17th, 2027. And of course, then Avatar will take the even years. Avatar 2 is now scheduled to come out in December of 2022, 2.5 years from now. It will be about, my math might be off, it's going to be about 13 years in between Avatar movies. Wrap your heads around that. Anyway, and we're looking at another 3.5 years until another Star Wars movie. With us talking, Rob, about, not really being surprised by movement of movies right now and seeing certain films getting bumped and all that kind of stuff, I got to say, I was surprised to hear about this, because both Star Wars and Avatar were still this has nothing to do with COVID, at least not directly. These are movies that are still tons of time away.
Right.
Avatar is something should have been in theaters 6-7 years ago. Avatar 2 is a movie that should have happened 6 or 7 years ago. And now another Star Wars movie not until for another 3.5 years from now. Well, so make it about 4 years in between. I do not understand this rationale. I really don't understand what their thinking here is. I get wanting to dominate the Christmas season, and maybe you don't think you can be ready to dominate the Christmas season by December of 2021, which is still a year and a half away.
Right.
You got to explain to me how a movie that's almost done initial production in Avatar 2, which is still a year and a half away, can't be ready in another 18 months? Really? I mean, unless they've got some other plans, but even then, I don't know. As a fan, and I'm speaking strictly from the perspective of a fan here, Rob, I hear this both for Avatar 2, but primarily talking about Star Wars. I'm looking at this and thinking, what are you doing? What are you doing? Star Wars is the most valuable franchise in the world, and you're going to sit. Listen, I understand maybe you want to take a step back, take a breath, reevaluate, but 4 years in between projects? Are we going back to the days of where we had to wait 17 years between, the end of one trilogy and the beginning of another? I mean, 4 years is not nearly as much, but I sit back and I look at this and say, what are you doing, Disney? Anyway, that's my initial thoughts on this. Rob, were you surprised by I admit I was surprised by this. Were you surprised by this? Does it make a lot of sense to you? There is value after all in really owning that Christmas season dates in the theaters. There is value to that, but I don't know. You look at this. How do you see it?
Well, I just see it as a function of everything being pushed. The delays, the marketing they have to spend. Basically, the world has lost a year. Hollywood has lost an entire year of blockbusters, and these blockbusters are what keep the studios going for the next year. I mean, and we've lost a whole year. So I think it's just a function of everything is getting pushed down the road, and also, I mean, think about. If all of this stuff butted up against one another, they would have to spend a lot of money, marketing dollars, a lot of money. So if they didn't kick things down the road, it would be financially devastating, I think. So, I mean, more so than it already is. And I think that's why they're doing it.
See, I get the thing of we've had a lot of stuff that's got to get shoved, so things need to be bumped a bit. I get that. 3.5 years till we get another Star Wars. I mean, that's the part that really befuddles me a little bit.
But I do think, I mean, we're getting the Mandalorian. There's going to be Star Wars content.
Yeah, there will be content on Disney Plus.
They're going to make the Cassian Andor series. They're going to do something, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it's not like Star Wars is going to go away anytime soon.
Right. But then again, they keep talking about all these other series too. We're not seeing a lot of movement on any of them.
Yeah, no, I know.
Thankfully, Mandalorian got done shooting before the pandemic kicked in. Question here is, guys, what do you think about this? Now, on the one hand, maybe we shouldn't be surprised. A lot of things are getting bumped, but Avatar was still so far away. Another Star Wars movie is still so far away. What do you guys think of it? Maybe it just makes common sense. Maybe you're a little bit surprised like me. What are your thoughts on this? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our fourth main topic today. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Amber Timmons, who writes, or Timmons writes, "Hi, John and Rob. Streaming has been the hot topic with almost every single movie getting people speculating if it'll go right to streaming or not. Tenet has obviously been the one most talked about. Did you see that the head boss over at Warner has just said, without question, that Tenet will not be going directly to streaming and will absolutely have its theatrical release? They just don't know when. With him sounding so certain, do you think this is how most studios view their major films?" All right, thanks for sending that in. And of course, we've been talking about Tenet a lot. And of course, just recently, Tenet got moved off of its release date yet again. Only this time, they haven't given us another official release date. They are saying they still are aiming to have it come out in 2020. Whether or not they'll actually be able to do that, we'll have to wait and see. But it has increased the speculation, as it has for a lot of people about a lot of movies. A lot of people thinking, oh, we're just going to take things to streaming. That's what everybody's going to do. They're just going to go to streaming. Well, that's not what's going to happen. Not with any of their bigger films, and certainly not with Tenet. The CEO of AT&T, which owns Warner, his name is John Stanky, said the following: "It is going to happen with, is it going to happen like taking certain movies to streaming? Is it going to happen with a movie like Tenet or something like Wonder Woman? I'd be very surprised if that would be the case. In fact, I can assure you with Tenet that is not going to be the case." Now, Rob, some people and some film fans may hear comments like that and maybe be a little bit surprised and think, well, why not? Like, why not put it to streaming? You can't be in theaters. Why not put it out and let people see it? But a lot of people who are a little bit more connected in the industry, like yourself, know that that's financial suicide. These movies, as you kind of pointed out a little bit earlier, these movies cannot make the nickels and dimes that you make on VOD. These movies need to make the real money that you make in theaters. Movies like Wonder Woman 84, like Bill and Ted. They just announced Bill and Ted yesterday is going to go straight to streaming on September. But you and I talked a couple of weeks ago about how Bill and Ted is actually a movie that makes sense to go straight to VOD. It wasn't going to make a ton of money in the box office anyway. It was a relatively inexpensive movie to make, and it's got a lot of nostalgia that'll help people with VOD. That one made sense. but significant movies, it just doesn't. And I think hearing from AT&T kind of redoubling down on that, saying, no, make no mistake about it, we're not going to see Tenet on streaming prior to a full theatrical release on that point. Rob, the longer we go into and get into this whole pandemic situation, things that are absolutely set in stone rules become not so set in stone.
Right.
As we get deeper and deeper into unprecedented situations that break all the rules of what should normal operations be, at least temporarily, it does change the paradigm of what could be possible. And what, like, for instance, 5 months ago, the idea of taking Bill and Ted straight to streaming, impossible. No way. No chance. Not at all. But in this current reality we're in right now, at least temporarily, it becomes a move that kind of makes common sense. It seems to me that still with bigger movies like Wonder Woman, like Tenet, like Mulan, these are films that no matter how long you've got to wait and put them out theatrically, despite how deep we get. But Rob, let me ask you this. I know that you have thought that before, but are we getting deeper, at least deep enough into this pandemic situation where, do you have any surprise hearing the head of AT&T and Warner Brothers saying that, nope, they are still absolutely concrete. It's theatrical release for our bigger films. Are you surprised by that? And do you think that could change depending on how much longer this goes? What do you think?
It really is. It's based on the budget of the film itself. How much did the movie cost? And a movie like Tenet, which has a reported budget of $250 million, the only way you can make that film earn out is if it goes theatrical. In no way, shape, or form can they ever make their money back by putting it out on VOD or SVOD or whatever, or just putting it out on HBO Max. They can't. They're stuck. And I would say the same is probably true of Wonder Woman and Mulan, of course. If these films are that expensive, in order to make them, I mean, it ain't show friends, it's show business, and we have to make money. And, you know, the thing about streaming, what people have to understand is, like the Snyder Cut, as you and I have talked about, they're spending probably, I'll bet you they're spending $80 million to finish that movie. That's about, for a movie, not even a series that goes 10 episodes, you could spend $80 million on. But a movie, that's probably at the top of what they can spend. A $250 million film, they can't. They need 800 million to $1 billion. Otherwise, they're going to lose their shirts.
Now, normally, it should be pointed out here, normally a movie that costs 250 probably wouldn't need 800 million, but you got to remember, and somebody reminded me of this the other day.
Costs.
Not just with marketing. Even then, you wouldn't necessarily need 800, but somebody reminded me the other day, because I did the math. I'm like, no, this thing should still only need about 650 million. Why are they saying 800? And then somebody reminded me, the unique thing about Tenet is that a major thing you got to incorporate into their expenses, 20% goes to Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's why it's going to cost 800 million plus for them to even break even.
Christopher Nolan got to eat, John. He ain't gonna let that. He ain't gonna let that movie go to. He will make. Do you know how much he would make if it goes to streaming? $0. So Christopher Nolan ain't no dummy. He's got a wife who produces with him. She's like, honey, this movie's going theatrical. You can go home.
So listen, guys, the question becomes, we're now hearing these, the head guy over at AT&T and Warner saying, I can assure you there's no way these things are going to streaming. Does that surprise you? Or does that, after all these months now talking about and really looking at the facts, does that just make common sense to you? Or as we get deeper into the pandemic, is it becoming a little bit surprising? What do you guys think about that right now? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our fifth and final main topic today. I told you it was a packed day today. So our fifth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Harrison Fullman, who writes, Hi, John. I had a chance to watch the Comic-Con panel for The Boys earlier today. This was yesterday, obviously. And it was so much better than I expected it to be. They showed a scene from the new season, but they also announced that Amazon has already given a green light to The Boys Season 3. To me, this is the best news I have heard all day, because not only will we get more of The Boys, but it also says that Amazon likes what they've got in season 2. What do you think? All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, Harrison. And yeah, one of the big panels at Comic-Con at Home yesterday was the panel for The Boys. I love The Boys. Ann, I, and Corey are going through our second viewing of The Boys right now. And by the way, Ann, Corey, and I are going to be doing an after show for once The Boys season 2 launches. We're going to be doing an episode by episode after show, but we'll talk about that another time. I am psychotically excited for this. And yes, first of all, they did show a scene from the new season. And the scene, for those of you who may not have seen it, it's got the boys on a boat running from looks like a bunch of dolphins and sharks. And then all of a sudden, this giant whale comes out of the water being ridden by the Deep. And then the Deep tries to cut them off with the whale, and all hell breaks loose. It was a fantastic scene. I loved what I was seeing. It just looks great. But of course, on top of that, they also came out and announced that there is a season 3. This comes to us from Polygon that writes, during the San Diego Comic-Con 2020 panel for the hit comic book series, producers Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg showed up to announce that The Boys season 3 has already been greenlit by Amazon in anticipation of its second season due in September. If you like The Boys, you've got more of it. Thank God, Rogen said. And this is amazing. This is amazing on a couple levels, and I'm going to harken back here to what Fulman was just saying a second ago, which is, number one, it's great because now not only do I get to watch The Boys season 2, I get to know that The Boys season 3 is going to come, that we're going to get more later on. That's fantastic to me as a big fan of the show. But also, as they pointed out in the email, the other great piece of news here is this must mean that Amazon loves what they've seen in the Boys season 2. They had to have taken a look at it. They must go, you know what? This is fantastic. We think our audiences are going to love this. Let's hook this up for season 3 already. Who knows when they'll be able to start production? But actually, you know what? Production's starting to ramp up around the world, so maybe they'll be able to go into production sooner rather than later. But I think this is absolutely fantastic news. I cannot wait. Rob, first of all, you saw the scene that they showed in the panel. What do you think about the scene, and what are your thoughts on them greenlighting a Boys season 3 already?
Well, here is my volume 2 of the hardcover of The Boys from Dynamite. This is how much I love The Boys. I love The Boys. I think that the show exceeded every one of my expectations. I couldn't believe how it was done. And I have been deliriously excited about season 2. And that scene that you talked about, oh my God. Like, first of all, they're out on the water, John. I mean, that's never an easy thing to do. And I cannot wait. And the idea they're getting a season 3, bring it on. As John Schnepp would say, bring it on, son. I can't wait.
When is season 2? Is it September? Is that when season 2 is supposed to start?
Yeah, it's close. It is. Like we're getting, you've got Doom Patrol season 2 already going.
Which is so good already, by the way. It's
Umbrella
so good already.
Academy is coming like in what tomorrow? Wait. Is Umbrella Academy out today?
I thought it comes out in August.
Maybe
I'll double check because I am also
July 25th or something.
Because I am also ludicrously excited about Umbrella Academy.
I can't wait. I mean, for all of the disappointment that Hollywood is bringing me as far as movies go, boy, are they delivering when it comes to streaming shows. I mean, come on, man. We are living, especially in terms of superheroes or fantasy shows, or it's an embarrassment of riches. Season 3 of Dark, which I have yet to see, but oh my God, we're getting the best stuff, man, and it's the one thing that's keeping me going. Maybe I'll have to live longer, John. Maybe I just won't end my life.
Well, guys, the question here is, what do you think about this news? First of all, what did you think about that scene that they showed? If you've had a chance to see it.
So good.
Oh, I thought it was so great. And secondly, what do you guys think about them announcing season 3? I mean, sometimes something like that could be a little bit premature. I take this as personally as great news, but maybe you see it differently. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all that down and out of the way, 8 topics today, Rob, we had to cover. With all that down and out of the way, we're now going to move on and start taking your live questions. Again, if you want to get a live question in on the show, if you're watching this show live, or anytime you want to send in a question that can be read maybe on the next episode, you can jump into the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video. Just click on that, or streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. So let's dive into it. And our first live topic or question comes into us from Scott Brown, who writes, to me, a big reason why HBO Max is failing, we talked about HBO Max and they're very slow coming out of the gate. My 3 reasons why. Confusion around brand, confusion around content, and a confusion around platforms. We talked about that yesterday. You can go and see that on the YouTube channel. To me, one of the big reasons why HBO Max is failing is because it doesn't render, it has a hard time maintaining 1080 watching Fight Club, and it buffered several times. And two or three times I had to back out and resume to get it to play. I have only had this issue with HBO Max. That's something I have not heard about that problem. Now, I know a lot of people complaining that HBO Max doesn't stream in 4K. I personally don't think that's a big deal. I honestly don't think not streaming in 4K right now is that big of a deal, to be honest with you. But having problems rendering out and just streaming in 1080, that could be an issue. Now, again, I haven't heard about this problem from anybody else, but I will keep my ears to the ground, because if that is an issue, that's something they got to fix. Now, the good news is it would just be a technical problem, and they can probably fix that rather simply. At least one would hope. So we'll keep our eyes on that, Scott, for sure. All right, next up, Jay Bling writes, this time home has made me consider switching from physical to digital home media entirely. However, before I do, there needs to be an Apple TV that I can sync files to, like an iPhone or iPad, so I can still watch movies on it in the event of a Wi-Fi outage. Well, I mean, the good news about that, Jay Bling, is that, because I get it, if your internet goes out your house, Rob, like it happened to you a few days ago, your internet went out for most of the day, you can still pick up your phone. If you got like 4G, or maybe if you're lucky enough to have 5G already, you can pick up your phone and start streaming there. There are already a number of ways you can cast from your phone to your TV. If you have a Roku, you should just be able to do it. Otherwise, a Chromecast, which you can pick up for like $30 now, you can just take whatever app you're watching your thing on your phone and just stream it and cast it to your TV through your Chromecast. There are a lot of different ways to do that already. Rob, I'm just curious, do you currently have like a go-to default way of watching content not natively through your TV? If you have to do it through another app or another device to your TV, do you have a way you do that specifically?
Yeah, my 4K Blu-ray player. I mean, I'm literally looking at a wall of 2,000 plus movies right now. And I'm a big physical, not to joke. I mean, I understand what you're saying. No, to be honest, when we're Comcast, no, we're not, we're Spectrum. And over the last month and a half, our internet has gone out 4 times.
Unacceptable.
In our neighborhood. And all of those times have been in the middle of the day, where I was either supposed to be on your show or do my show. And it makes me pull my hair out. I'm like, so no. I mean, I tried to use my phone as a hotspot, but to stream video, this kind of video through Wirecast, it just doesn't work. So, yeah, man, I am at the mercy of my service, and I like Spectrum, I do, but when they go out, my life is over.
I've had good, not like when my internet's out, hotspotting tethering through my phone is not good enough for me to do live streaming shows, but I've had very good luck that in the few occasions that the internet's been out of my house, that I've been able to stream movies on my phone and just cast them either through my Roku or through my Chromecast, just cast it from the phone to the TV. Also, I also have a USB-C to HDMI cable. So if I need to, I can just plug, the HDMI cable going into my TV right into my phone and play streaming movies that way.
I've never tried that, but now you make me want to try.
It works in a pinch. It works.
I've actually streamed. I've done live stuff out of my laptop, streaming or going using my phone as a hotspot, and that's worked okay.
Yeah.
But I haven't tried it here. Now you make me want to.
Just go directly from your phone to the TV. It should work. All right. Hopefully that helps, Jay Bling. All right. Next up, Alan writes, hi, John Rob. If you had a choice, would you rather have next Avengers movie be Secret Wars or Young Avengers? I have zero interest in a Young Avengers movie. They have introduced Hawkeye's daughter, Casey Lang, Tony's daughter, Khan series also coming. That's Ms. Marvel. Also, come over and join Rob on Team Godzilla. No, screw Team Godzilla. Keep your lizard dicks to yourself. Anyway. I have zero interest in a Young Avengers. I don't think there would be a lot of interest in that, to be honest with you. A Young Avengers is something you could do on a Disney Plus, maybe, stuff like that. And listen, I'll be honest with you. I don't really care all that much about Secret Wars either. Not that I'd be against it. I wouldn't be against it. But here's the thing that everybody's got to remember, Rob. You can sit there and wish for a Secret Wars, but just be ready that if they do a Secret Wars movie, it ain't going to be the Secret Wars you remember from the comics. Every time Marvel goes to a comic, one of the existing comic stories to do one of their movies, they make vast changes and they take vast liberties, which they should, because what their main responsibility is to make the best movie possible. The number one responsibility is not, as some people think, stay as true to the source material as possible. No, your number one responsibility is make the best movie possible. Yeah. Ultron was nothing like the Ultron storyline in the movie. Civil War was very unlike Civil War in the comic books. On and on. So if they do a Secret War, just be prepared that it's not going to be the Secret Wars you think. They'll take the main thematic ideas, but then they're going to make a completely different movie. Rob, do you admit, but bottom line for me is, Rob, I don't care. Whatever Kevin Feige decides to do with the next Avengers movie, it's going to be great. It doesn't matter if it's based on an existing comic story or not. It's going to be awesome, so I really don't care. But Rob, I don't know. What do you think about the whole Secret Wars idea?
Well, the thing about Secret Wars is I don't think it would make a great film. I mean, the idea of bringing all the Marvel villains and all the Marvel heroes to a battle world or war world or wherever they're going to call it, I just don't care about that. I don't think that there's enough story there. The Marvel universe has moved beyond the idea, or as we would say, the beyonder, if you're talking about Secret Wars. Unless David Hasselhoff is going to be wearing a white 80s linen suit with, then I don't know why you would want to do that. It's just not that interesting.
All right, let's move on here. Neil Peart, one of the greatest drummers of all time, good Canadian kid. Hey, John, binge watching Breaking Bad for the first time. Nice. So what was the point of the Fly episode? That's actually my favorite episode of Breaking Bad is the Fly episode. And is it skippable? The whole episode spends Jesse and Walt trying to kill a fly. Nothing significant happens to move along plot. Just seems like a filler. I disagree. To me, one of the reasons that to me, Rob, is my actual favorite episode of Breaking Bad is because it all speaks to the characters. The whole thing speaks to the development and our understanding and the evolution of the characters. You see kind of into the souls of the characters in that episode. And on that basis alone, I think it has incredible value because for me personally, every episode after the Fly episode, I looked at Walter a little bit differently. I saw Walter a little bit differently. I saw Jesse a little bit differently as a result of that episode. So to me, I don't think it's skippable. If all you're looking for is the action of what happens, maybe. But for me, I thought it was an invaluable episode. Rob, what did you think about the Fly episode?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, it first of all, it's very innovative. I mean, from a filmmaking standpoint. And I think that, like you just said, it's about the soul of the characters. And it's being presented in a very unique and interesting way. And that alone makes it worthy. And why would you want to skip it? Yeah. I mean, I'm like, the episode is so much fun to watch. Why would you possibly want to skip that episode?
Yeah, well, I mean, I get it. I mean, everything's subjective. Maybe it didn't work for them, and that's cool. But for me, that episode has a lot of value. All right, next up.
Me too.
Man of Steel writes, like you, I'm a Henry Cavill fan. I thought he was great as the big bad in Mission Impossible Fallout. Yeah, I thought he was really good in that. I know your philosophy on X actor and X role, but I'd love to see him as the antagonist in Hobbs and Shaw 2 or 3. I believe the fight scenes would be very interesting. You don't need Henry Cavill to make good fight scenes. That's it. Look, Idris Elba was, I really like Idris Elba in Hobbs and Shaw. You didn't need Idris Elba in order to make it great fight scenes. You don't need to have Henry Cavill to make it great fight scenes. I love Henry Cavill. So if you were to announce that, Henry Cavill was going to be your bad guy in the next Mission Impossible, well, all I care about is, are you announcing a good actor? He's great, so I'll be excited about it. But don't start writing your movie around who you want the villain to be. You come up with the story, and then you plug in the right villain for that story. Again, we were talking about this on the show yesterday. Characters are not there to be served by the story. The characters are there to serve the story. So I would look at it that way. But yeah, listen, if they were to announce that, hey, they wrote their story for Hobbs and Shaw 2, and they felt like the best fit was Henry Cavill. Oh, listen, you know how I feel about Henry. I think Henry's awesome. So I would certainly be excited about it, but I don't think it needs to be him. So that's kind of where my thoughts are right now. All right, next up. Meh writes, the movies that connect me to a personal event are Kevin Smith movies. I bonded with my best friend Adam over Kevin's early movies growing up. Adam passed away unexpectedly 14 years ago, but Kevin's movies podcasts still bring my friend back to me. You know what? It's funny, Rob. We were talking about this on the show yesterday, that one of the most powerful things about movies to me is that they also create anchor points. They create associations. I've mentioned that I still remember exactly where I was and who I was with when I saw The Phantom Menace for the first time.
Yep.
I still, I talk a lot about the fact that, my best friend growing up who died a couple of years ago, me and him went to go see, when we were kids, to go see Batman in theaters, to go see the first Tim Burton Batman movie. And, those things are there. And those are powerful, powerful things. A Kevin Smith movie to me, Clerks 2, was a very, very powerful movie for me, because one of the big themes in Clerks 2 is, one of the guys is thinking about moving away from his friends to go for a job. And it was really funny that I saw that movie in a time of my life when I was considering moving away from my friends for a job. And I was struggling with that. And so Clerks 2 is a very, very special movie to me. But it is amazing how these movies can create those anchor points for us, these associations we have. Do you have any kind of a movie in particular that really created a very clear memory for you?
Oh my gosh, so many. I have to say, this is kind of weird to say, but it was Raiders of the Lost Ark. I have a memory with my mom. My mom, not a big movie fan, but my mom made it a point when a big movie would come out that I talked about a lot, she would want to take me to the movies. And I'll never forget Raiders of the Lost Ark with my mom. We're driving home from the theater, and my mom is really quiet. She's not saying a thing. And I said, well, Mom, what did you think of the movie? And she was still quiet. And she turns to me and she goes, that could never happen. And I was like, what? She goes, well, with Indiana Jones hanging off the back of that truck with his bullwhip, with the dust and the dirt and the gravel going into his face, he couldn't have hung on. And I was like, well, what about the power of God coming out of the Ark of the Covenant and vanquishing the Nazis? My mom's like, yeah, but that happens. Like Moses parted the Red Sea, God shows up. But Indiana Jones, he couldn't have held on to the back of that on his whip. He couldn't have done it. I would have let go. And I realized, I was like, wow, for the very first time, this is the insight into my mother. I was, 14 or something? My mother is a total pragmatist. She's a total realist. The power of God's cool. But gravel and dust in your face?
No dice.
That's why my mom was the anal retentive perfectionist that she wanted me to clean my room all the time. Now I got it for the very first time. And when I think my entire relationship with my mother, I think about that moment. of seeing Raiders of the Lost Ark with her, and I finally realized what I needed to really understand about my mom. She's 81, going strong now. She's still in great health, and yet I still think back to the 14-year-old in me, and now I understand my mom because of that moment.
There's another one that involves you that I think about, which was, I remember I invited you to come along with me to the Disney lot to come and see the first press screening for Avengers Endgame.
Dude.
And I remember you talking a lot that day. You and I went to have lunch first. And I remember you talking a lot that day about how it had been 1 year earlier that you had done the exact same thing. You were on your way a year earlier to the Disney lot to see the first press screening of Infinity War, but you weren't my guest. You were Schnepp's guest. And I remember you talking a lot about that, and then talking to a bunch of other people who were there that day as well, remembering being there with Schnepp 1 year earlier. Oh, so another anchor point like that.
No, you bring it up. I will never forget, in terms of being in a movie theater, even though it's not Hugo Weaving's voice, when you
Red
heard
Skull?
his the sound of, like, I turned to John, like, it was one of those moments where John Schnepp and I turned and looked at each other with our eyes just bugging out. Like, oh my God, the Red Skull. Like, we couldn't believe it. It was such a, and yet we're still trying to be quiet and polite. So we couldn't be like, we couldn't say anything. So we're just looking at each other. It was like out of a Warner Brothers cartoon. Our eyeballs were literally popping out of our heads at the same time. Oh, man.
Yeah. Oh, I remember I turned to Ann when that happened. There was the one time in that movie. I mean, I love the movie, but it was the one time in my movie when Skull showed up. I turned my jaw dropped into my lap. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway. All right. We need to move on here. But yes, these movies create powerful anchor points, and I'm glad that you had that one with your friend, man. All right. V. Rodriguez writes, greetings and salutations, John. I know we're only halfway through the year, but my favorite film of 2020 so far is Da 5 Bloods. Have you watched it yet? Also, what's your favorite film of 2020 so far? I did. I enjoyed Da 5 Bloods. Honestly, I didn't like it nearly as much as Spike Lee's previous film, Black Klansman. I like Lee's previous film a lot more, but Delroy Lindo is crazy good in Da 5 Bloods, and he very well, whenever we get another Oscars, whenever that happens, we very well could be getting some Oscar buzz around him. As far as my favorite film of the year, still right now, my favorite film of the year was The Gentleman. The Guy Ritchie movie, The Gentleman. That is still my number one favorite movie of the year. I just adored that one. I'm a little bit of a sucker for Guy Ritchie style films, but The Gentleman is still my number one film of the year. Jason writes, hey, John, you mentioned that you're rewatching The Boys. I also did recently, and I just love that show. But I wanted to ask if you noticed The Fly. If you haven't, go back to the Mall Spice Girls speech and watch for it. Have you seen theories about it? I don't think I've noticed, and I don't think I've heard any theories about it. Rob, have you heard about any theories about The Fly and The Boys? I have not. Is this something that's in the graphic novel at all? I don't remember it.
I have not heard theories about that.
I've never even heard that there were theories about it. So, but I'll tell you what, Jason, I will from now on keep my eye open for it to see if I notice anything. It's not something I've ever looked for, but it's something I'll have to keep my eyes open for. All right, a silly goose writes, I'll be straight up honest. I actually prefer the Star Wars prequel trilogy to the original trilogy. I catch a lot of hate for this opinion, but I stand by it. When I think of Star Wars, I think of the prequels. Jedi and clones. Have a good one, bro. Hey, listen, dude, that's the beautiful thing about movies, is the pure subjectivity of them. Some people get annoyed by it, but it is actually the best thing about movies. That you can have a movie or a group of movies, whatever, that maybe a lot of people hate, but you may see a lot of beauty in. And for you, it hits you in a certain way. And I'll joke about prequels and people, friends don't let friends watch the prequels. I joke about something. But the reality is, if those movies give you joy, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. And that's the best thing about movies. Because what it means is that every movie, no matter how much it's loved by the majority of people or how much it's despised by the majority of people, it doesn't matter. Every movie can give somebody a lot of joy. And that's the beautiful thing about art. And that's the beautiful thing about movies. So don't you apologize, silly goose, for your love of the prequels. Just because I don't like them, you love them. That's the important thing. So good on you, man. All right. Laura writes, Are you excited that when you move to Seattle, there will be a hockey team for you to go to games closer than Vancouver? Okay, so yes, number one, Rob, I don't know if you saw this. The NHL is going to Seattle.
Yeah.
Have you seen the name for the team?
No.
I had to roll my eyes. The name of the hockey team in Seattle is the Seattle Kraken. Release the Kraken.
Come on, man. That's dope. With a K.
Yeah, with a K and everything. Release the Kraken. I got to admit, I rolled my eyes a bit when I saw it. But you dig it. You like the name?
Come on, man. It's mythological.
That's true. I mean, it is.
The Kraken and the Seahawks. All right. Ooh. And the Mariners. We're a very sea-based town.
You're a seafaring town. I guess I could hear like the opening when the player's about to hit the ice or about to come out and hit the ice. You have this big booming voice over the speakers. Release the Kraken, and then the players come out of the ice.
Because it's both Laurence Olivier and Liam Neeson, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there have been others as well.
We can have multiple great actors saying "Release the Kraken."
Release the Kraken.
I'll bet you they turn that into a thing, and saying "Release the Kraken" is going to be something that they're going to have every celebrity record, or even just fans. People are going to have a new "Release the Kraken" at every home game, and if they don't,
you know what?
They should. That's my idea.
I rolled my eyes at first, but now that I'm thinking about all the marketing and the hype stuff just behind the slogan "Release the Kraken," I may have to change my mind on that. But to get back to your question,
I'm buying a jersey.
Here's the funny thing: I might not be moving to Seattle anymore. I don't know if I should even be talking about this publicly. There's a chance that Amazon, my wife now works for Amazon. She moved from Hasbro over to Amazon. And she's got a senior gig over there. And we were going to be looking at moving to Seattle. But the longer stuff has gone on, it's looking more and more like they just may let Ann just work from home from here, period. So I don't know that yet, but there is a chance that we may not be moving to Seattle after all, but I will keep you guys updated about that. All right, next up, Chris writes, I watched a movie called Love, Sarah yesterday. It was the first new release movie I've seen, and it was bad, but it was so good just to see a new movie. I didn't care. Now, I haven't seen that, but that's the one where like the daughter is helping her mom fulfill like a dream of hers to open a bakery. I think that's the movie you're talking about. I haven't seen it myself. I have heard not great things about it. But listen, I'll tell you what, though. I'm not the biggest watch streaming movies at home thing, but in the midst of this stuff, like having the Old Guard come out and being able to pop on Old Guard is great. Having Tom Hanks' Greyhound, and I'm not a big fan of Tom Hanks' Greyhound, to be honest. I was a little bit disappointed by the movie, but still having a new movie come out, it's pretty great. It's funny how much enthusiasm you get for that kind of stuff right now, Chris, even if it's a movie you didn't like so much like Love, Sarah. But yeah, I've heard about the film, but I haven't seen it yet myself. Chris Jordan writes, hey, John, are there any movies you loved on first watch, but your opinion has changed with repeat viewings? An example of this for me is Kingsman 2. Well, it's funny you mentioned Kingsman 2. I was disappointed in Kingsman 2 the first time I saw it. But I walked out going, yeah, it was still all right, but a big, big step down from the first one. And then I kept thinking about it, and I'm like, no, I don't like that movie at all. And then I did see it a second time, and I'm like, no, this movie sucks. And I love the first Kingsman, but the only other movie, like I've had a number of movies, Rob, where it's like, maybe I didn't like it the first time, but I did later. Inglourious Bastards is a great example. I hated Inglourious Bastards for some reason the first time I saw it, and then when I watched it again later, I'm like, why didn't I like this? I love this movie. Now it's a top 10 favorite Tarantino movie of mine. The only other movie I can think of that I liked and then I watched it again later and then hated, no guff, no kidding. Man, how many years has it been since I said the words no guff? Holy crap. Anyway, was my own movie, Rise of the Trades, my Star Wars fan film, which actually won some awards. But I remember
Wait, you made a Star Wars fan film?
Dude, we took it to Star Wars Celebration. We won awards.
How have I not seen this?
Well, I'll tell you why you haven't seen it. So it was called Rise of the Trades. It was a blending of the story of The Phantom Menace and The Godfather. So we meld the two stories together, where a a young Jedi Padawan who has just left the Jedi Order, who is actually the son of a nefarious mob boss on Naboo, comes back to Naboo just prior to the events of The Phantom Menace. This was the whole idea. So it was The Godfather meets Star Wars The Phantom Menace, right?
Why is this not online, and why haven't I seen it?
So here's the thing. I was super proud of this thing. Let me see if I can pull up an image. Hold on a second. John Campea.
Dude, you gotta put this on your YouTube channel along with your dance crew videos.
Oh no, this ain't gonna happen. This is just simply not going to happen.
I think all fans should badger you forever until you put this out and make it available to all of us.
Okay,
Come on, man.
I cannot find any pictures anywhere, thank goodness. But anyway, I was so proud of this movie. I was so proud of it.
I'm proud of it, and I've never seen it.
I even did a bunch of the CGI for the battle droids and everything. Like, I actually did a bunch of the battle droid CGI and whatever. Now, this is like 13, 14 years ago, okay?
Bruh.
So we made this thing.
You need to give us this. We need to give it to me now.
And I was so proud of it. We did a theatrical release in our hometown. We packed out theaters for it, blah, blah. And anyway, I hadn't seen it in like 10 years, right? Because I didn't have any discs of it myself around anymore. So a couple of years ago, my buddy, Rodney Brazeau, some of you might remember him when I was doing the movie blog. He worked with me on the movie blog. He did a couple of episodes of our Star Wars Jedi Council talk with me. Anyway, my buddy Rodney Brazeau, who still lives up in my hometown of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My buddy Rodney Brazeau heard me talk about it on my show once, and he reached out to me and said, hey, I still have a copy, my DVD copy of Rise of the Trades. And it was packaged and everything. I'm like, oh, dude, can you send it to me so I can show my wife? Like, my aunt hasn't seen it yet. So he's like, sure. So he ships it up to me, and I make a big deal to my wife. They're like, oh, and tomorrow night, I'm going to be getting this thing. Book the night free. We're going to order some dinner. We're going to sit down. I'm going to show you this fan film I made. It was about 25 minutes long. We're going to watch this fan film I made. Oh, I'm so proud of it. We sat down and watched it. I hadn't seen it in like 10 years. And I'm like, oh my God. This is so bad. It's so unspeakably, horrifically awful.
Okay, and I remember you realize you're creating an entire. Everybody that's watching this show is going to demand that this be made available. I am demanding it be made available.
It's so bad.
Come on, man.
Like, and so like Ann and I watch it, and then Kaori was supposed to come over the next night to watch it with us, and I told her no. And she came over. She said, no, let me see it. Let me see it. I'm like, nope. And I've never let another human being watch it.
Oh man, you can't do this to us.
I've never let another human being watch.
I'm gonna start making shirts. Release the what do you want to call it? Release the Campea cut of this movie.
The movie is called Rise of the Trades, which was another an offshoot name for Godfather. So Rise of the Trades was the name of it, and it was really awful. Anyway, sorry, I've been taking up too much time. We need to keep rolling with questions here. Lots of questions yet to come. Anyway, next up, GQ writes, with Mahershala Ali being announced as Blade, he's also 46 years old already, and we know Feige always plans for long-term commitment and young actors. Do you think he made an exception because he can't say no to a two-time Oscar winner? And what is the fate of Blade now? That is the one thing, Rob, that I always found a little bit surprising at Comic-Con when Kevin Feige said one more thing, and Mahershala Ali comes out, and everybody's like, what's Mahershala Ali here for? And then he pulls out the hat and puts on the Blade hat, and everybody freaks out. I mean, he's one of the greatest actors in the world, two-time Academy Award winner. He's amazing, but he's 46. I mean, he might be 47 now.
Don't be ageist. Don't be ageist.
I'm not being ageist. I'm being practical. Practically speaking, can you do a Blade franchise for 10 years? Can this guy play Blade for 10 years? And
yes.
And so I don't know, man, because he's visibly going to age. And I don't know. The only thought I had was maybe Kevin Feige only has like a 2-movie arc plan for Blade, and then has Blade meet some noble end or noble death. So I'm not really sure. All I know is that I'm really happy they got Mahershala Ali because he's one of the best actors in the world. What do you think their approach to that's going to be?
Well, look, I mean, I think Mahershala, as long as he keeps his hair trimmed like Blade, you can, as long as you don't see any gray flecks. I mean, I think he like you said, he's a great actor. And I could see, Roger Moore played James Bond into his 50s. And yes, A View to a Kill is one of my least favorite Bond films, and it's a little ridiculous how old he was in it. But I think that Mahershala Ali could pull it off. I think he could do it. Especially, if you think about it, if they make a film, the first one comes out, and the way Marvel works, in 4 years, you could have the first one come out, and then the third one come out, and only 4 years will have gone by. Of course,
you could.
And they could do that. And I look, who knows when they're going to make another movie, but
that's the other thing, right? Like, he may be 46, 47 right now, but he will be walking the red carpet of the first Blade movie when he is in his 50s. He will be, because they haven't even started making a movie yet. We already know the next number of years. It's theoretical he could be walking the red carpet for his first Blade film being 50 already, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't care. It's Mahershala Ali. He's an Academy Award winning actor. Just give it to me. And you know what? You raise a great point. You could do 3 movies and then close it off and do that all within a span of 4 years. So that's a good point. So maybe that's the plan. All right, let's keep moving here. Next up, James Welsh writes, I know you're no fan of Cool. I know you are a fan of Cool as Ice. That's the Vanilla Ice movie. I love it's so bad. It is the greatest awful movie in the history of Hollywood. It is an awful movie, but it's so good to watch. Anyway, so what do you think of Dave Franco being cast in Vanilla Ice's biopic To the Extreme? Yeah, I heard about that. I'll be honest with you. I don't care. Dave Franco's a good little actor. I like Dave Franco. He just started directing, by the way, as well. He just did that movie, The Rental, which I'm hearing some pretty decent things about. Anyway, I like Dave Franco. I do. I'd be lying to you, though, if I told you I was interested in a Vanilla Ice biopic. Although it is kind of interesting. Like, he rose to prominence really quick. He's a really big personality type. But then after his music career ends, he goes on. Then a lot of people don't know this, Rob. I think it was on HGTV or one of these DIY networks. He had his own home renovation show because Vanilla Ice became a contractor. And then they had his own show where he went around and did renovations on homes. I can't remember what the name of it was. That's kind of interesting, but honestly, I'd be lying to you. I'd be faking it if I told you, oh, I'm so excited about this. I'm curious about it, but not that excited. You heard about this, Rob. What do you think?
Dude, come on, man. I think, first of all, it's great casting. And who doesn't want to see a Vanilla Ice biopic? I mean, I want to know why they took Queen's Under Pressure and turned it into a Vanilla Ice song. I want to see that.
What was the movie he was in? I think it was the Adam Sandler and Andy Samberg's movie, That's My Boy, which was awful. But I believe that's the one that Vanilla Ice was in. And he played himself. And I think that was the one. But anyway, and he plays himself, and somebody brings up the Coolest or the Ice Ice Baby song. And he's like, dude, don't even mention that song. The way the court ruled against me with the royalties, it actually costs me money every time a radio station plays that song. So, which I wouldn't be surprised about. That could be kind of interesting. Anyway, but yes, guys, the moral of today's lesson is go watch Cool as Ice. Get a bunch of friends, get some adult beverages. It'll be the greatest viewing experience you have all year. All right. Jason writes, ran out of room for the last question, but the Fly from The Boys, going back to the Boys thing with the Fly, shows up in a couple of more scenes and is clearly added in and not just a fly on set. I noticed it on my first watch, but forgot soon afterwards. Then noticed it the second watch again. Have you heard any theories? I haven't even heard of this at all. But now that you mention it, I might have to look into this, because if they're CGI adding in a fly into scenes, there may be a long-term purpose there. I don't know. Maybe it's the Torchlighter. Is that the name of the 7 member that disappears so Starlight could come in? They just say the retirement of my friend, the Torchbearer. Was that the name of the guy?
Yes. Anyway. Why am I drawing
Torchlighter, Torchbearer? I can't remember his name, but maybe it has something to do with, I don't know, or maybe it's nothing, but I will look into it now, Jason, because I never even heard of it until this point. All right. Dave Atkins writes, Been getting into table reads since lockdown. There have been a bunch of them being done online. Watching the Scott Pilgrim 10th anniversary brings back good memories. Seeing the cast get back in character so well and convincing. The crazy stylistic tone of the movie over webcams is so mesmerizing. Yeah, Rob, there have been a lot of these over Zoom table reads lately of some classic stuff. I don't know if you saw it, but my favorite that I've seen was actually the cast of Community got back, and all of them were there. All of them were there. And they did a table read of Donald Glover's last episode on the show. And they did a full table read of the episode. And there was a guest on that episode, and who was a lawyer. And instead of bringing in the original guy, who was just the guest actor on that, they got in Pedro Pascal to come in and read for that part. If you guys have not seen Community Table Read, go and find it on YouTube. It is mind-blowingly hilarious. And I've been really digging these things. Rob, have you watched any of these online table reads a bunch of these properties have been doing?
Oh, I watched a Star Trek Discovery table read yesterday. Right.
I forgot that was part of it.
Yeah, it made me want to go in and perhaps hang myself, but I didn't. Cooler heads prevailed. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I did watch it. That's all I have to say about that.
The one thing you and I will always have, that and Hook, the two things you and I are always going to have vehement disagreements over.
Well, how do you feel about the Goonies?
I didn't see the Goonies one. Did they do it already? I heard they were going to do
it. In terms of movies. I mean,
since we're going to argue about Goonies. I like the Goonies. Yeah, right. I've you don't like the Goonies? Oh, I remember you said you don't like the Goonies. Oh, man. Yeah, I have fond memories of the Goonies. Thanos. All right, let's move on here. Chris writes. Oh, and Chris sends in a $50 tip. Thank you so much, Chris, for supporting the channel on that level. All right, Chris writes, hey, John, big fan of the show. Thank you so much, Chris. I know you said your wife used to work at Hasbro. Yeah, she worked there for a number of years. And I have a great idea for a TV script for the Power Rangers. I've tried to find how to get permission to write a script, reached out directly and no luck. Any ideas? All right. Thanks a lot for writing that in, Chris. And listen, that is a commonly not specifically about Power Rangers, but the kind of question you're asking here is a commonly asked type of question. Right? About, hey, I've got an idea for a script. Who do I send it to? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm going to just give you a little bit of a warning here. I will give you a little bit of advice, but I'm going to tell you right now, I first have to tell you something that you are definitely not going to want to hear. And that is, no one's going to read it. I mean, that's just the way it is. No one's going to read it. Most studios, actually, I think it's fair to say probably now, Rob, all studios have a very important rule that they all have, and that is simply this. They do not accept, nor do they read, unsolicited material. And what I mean by unsolicited material is, unless the studio specifically came to you and asked you to write something for them and employed you to do it, you cannot send it. Because I get, Robin, I'm sure you probably get this question a lot too. John, I wrote a script for this great movie. Where do I send it to the studios? They don't accept them. And the reason they don't accept them is a very important legal reason, which is this. They need to protect themselves. Because let's say you wrote a script about Jeremy the Blue Beetle. Okay, you wrote this little talking Blue Beetle script. Jeremy the Blue Beetle, yay! And you mail it to Universal Studios, and they never get back to you. And then 7 years from now, Universal just happens to come up with an idea for a talking beetle movie. Maybe his name's not Jeremy, maybe he's not necessarily blue, but they come up with an idea for a talking beetle movie. Well, what's going to happen? You're going to go, 7 years ago, you took my script, you accepted my script that I wrote, and you're copying my idea, and I'm going to sue you for $50 million and blah, blah, blah. That's what would happen. And so studios have this rule of, we do not accept unsolicited material. You can't just write a script at home and then email it off to Universal or Disney or anything like that. The way you get, this is oversimplifying it, and Rob, please correct me where I'm wrong, but the way you get a script noticed or read by the studio is, number one, you have to get a reputable literary agent. Now, the studios have relationships with the literary agents, and the literary agents can then take material to them. But getting a literary agent is even more difficult than an actor in Hollywood trying to get an acting agent, a reputable acting agent. It's difficult, not impossible. But if you really got dreams of being a writer, what you got to do is work hard, but then the next thing you got to do is start submitting to literary agents to see if a literary agent will even take you on as a client. And if they take you on as a client, then you might start getting some stuff right. But it's a 1 in a million situation. Rob, listen, you are far more closely connected to all this than me. How would you answer that question?
Well, I used to read screenplays for a living. And
that's right.
And I would tell you that you read 100 scripts, only one of them is any good. Most scripts are terrible. And you're competing. If you're going to write a script from home and you want to send it to a Hollywood studio, remember there's already 1 million people in Hollywood trying to get their scripts made. So you're fighting against people that have already turned it into a living, or you're going up against unbelievable odds.
Of people who already have representation.
Yeah, who already have representation. They're already. Now, when I worked at CAA, for instance, which is a big talent agency, we had to read what are called unsolicited scripts, meaning scripts from outside the agency, friends of friends, whatever. And they were the worst, most excruciating experiences of my professional career. The very worst screenplay I ever read was in one of those piles. We had to read a certain amount of those a week. And it is, I can't even tell you. So the reason that, like you said, it's absolutely correct that studios have to have legal protection. When they get scripts from agencies or whatever, that is their legal protection. The agencies themselves take on the liability of once you submit a script from an agency, a studio can read that. That's called a solicited script. Studios can't take unsolicited manuscripts because of the very reasons that you already detailed. So the idea that you are in, I don't know, Pig's Knuckle, Arkansas or whatever, and sending in a script. Listen, I don't even know if there is a Pig's Knuckle, Arkansas. I don't mean to denigrate anyone from the great state of Arkansas. I'm just saying, I was using that popped into my brain. The idea that you think that you can just write a script and have it sent in, that doesn't exist. There's no way you can do that. And I don't want to dissuade anyone's creativity, but it's 1,000,000 to 1. It's like Richard Dreyfuss in Jaws. It's 100 to 1 that the shark that they killed was actually the shark in Jaws.
Right. And it's not to say, look, it's not to say that there's not a path. There is a path. It's just not the easy direct line path that a lot of people think, hey, I'm just going to sit at home, write a script, and I'm going to send it to Paramount. Right. That's not how it works. So you've got to go through, you've got to find an agency like a CA or others who are already taking in tens of thousands of other people trying to get representation. And then they have to just think that you're good enough that they can represent you. And then once you're being represented, now I'm oversimplifying it, but the basics is once you're represented, then maybe it goes to the next step.
They get scripts every day. Like if you go into a studio mailroom, people are sending them they go straight in the garbage. No one can even read the title.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there are people who make it. Obviously, there are people who make it. And maybe you can be one of them. Just understand the uphill battle that it is. And if you accept that and understand that, and you know the actual path you have to follow, and you want to pursue it, by all means, man, go and pursue it. But there's no just, hey, give me the email address of somebody at Hasbro to send them my idea for a TV show for Power Rangers. That, unfortunately, is not a reality. So there's that. Anyway, Rob, we've kept you a little bit over time here. We know you got things you got to get to. But listen, thanks so much for being here, of course. And in the meantime, Rob, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations, and the show I do with my girlfriend, Elizabeth, Whining About Movies.
All right, dude. Always awesome to have you here, and we'll see you again on Monday, my friend.
Yes, sir.
All right, have a good one, dude. All right, guys, we still have about 20 minutes to keep going through your live questions, so let's keep this ball rolling, shall we? We're going to pick things up here with Jubilera, who writes, how funny would it be if New Mutants is the movie that actually saves movie theaters after all the crap that it has been through? Wouldn't that be funny? It does come out on August 28th and whatever theaters are open, and it infuses a big bunch of business into the movie theaters that are open at certain places around the country. I mean, I don't foresee that necessarily happening, but you're right, dude. How hilarious would that be if that was actually that New Mutants actually becomes the movie that saves everybody? That would absolutely be hilarious. All right, next up. Supreme Joseph writes, hey, John, I love the TV after shows you used to do with Team Amazing. Team Amazing is my wife, Ann, and her friend, Kaori. Any chance you can do these types of videos again? It's always fun when Ann is doing videos with you. I wish my wife liked nerd culture, comic book, video games like you lucked out big time, bro. I did luck out big time. Well, it's funny that you asked because I mentioned a little bit earlier, we are planning. One of the reasons that we are going through The Boys season 1 right now, I'm rewatching it, but Kaori hasn't seen it before, so she's watching it for the first time, is because the three of us are planning to do a post show for The Boys. We're going to do an episode by episode post show of The Boys season 2 when it comes out. And we're very excited about that. And, you know, I really can't get Ann to do videos with me very often because when I'm doing my videos, she's doing her job. She works. She's employed. So it's difficult, but yeah, we'll do some after show stuff, and I'm very excited about it whenever we get around to doing it. All right, thanks for asking that, Supreme Joseph. Next up, Brian Lohner writes, today is my 36th birthday. Happy birthday, my friend. May you have a great day and a great year ahead of you. And happy 38th birthday to Anna Paquin, Summer Glau. Oh, I love Summer Glau. And Elizabeth Moss, all born on the very same day, exactly 2 years before me. Plus, Linda Carter and Patty Jenkins. Is it their birthday today? I remember last year when it was their birthdays. That could make a great Wonder Woman theme party. I have no idea who, if any celebrities share my birthday. I'm going to have to look that up sometime. But anyway, Ryan, seriously, happy birthday, man. I know you've been a viewer here and a regular here in our community, so thank you so much for being here. May you have a fabulous birthday, and thanks for sharing part of your birthday with us here as well, and may you have a fabulous year ahead of you, my friend. Thanks a lot for sending that in, dude. All right, next up. Anthony C. writes, Spider-Man 3 bumped, yeah, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Spider-Man 3 bumped to December 2021. This just supports my theory that the title will be Ho Ho Home or Home for the Holidays. Of course, the Spider-Man movies have both had the word home in them. A Christmas party at Avengers HQ with old man Steve dressed as Santa Claus asking Morgan, that's Tony's daughter, and a drunk Ned what they want for Christmas. There you go. I mean, what some of my favorite memes during the pandemic have been like, Spider-Man 3, stay at home. Spider-Man 3, work from home. Spider-Man 3, stay at home order, or whatever. That's always been kind of funny. But yes, home for the holidays. It writes itself. I think you might be onto something there, Anthony. I like the idea. All right. Lewis McGee writes, hey, John and Rob, just missed Rob. Notice Rob's The Prisoner Blu-ray behind him. It's a series that I absolutely love. Feels like a prime property for film adaptation, allowing us to see someone that's too old to play Bond now tackle the genre through a unique story. You guys have any thoughts on this or the series in general? And are there any similar properties you could make a great adaptation? Thanks and stay safe. Well, I have personally never seen that, but it was only about a month or two ago. If you guys remember, somebody else wrote in and asked about The Prisoners, and I said, I am not familiar with The Prisoners. I'm not, or The Prisoner, whatever it's called. I'm not familiar with it. And Rob chimed in and said, it's this great series. I own the Blu-rays, and he talked about it a little bit at length. But I am still completely unaware of it myself. As far as other things like that, they've already kind of done it with the one I would pick, which was The Equalizer. The Equalizer was a show my mom used to watch, and I would watch it too, only it was like this older white dude, whatever. But then they did decide to make movie versions of it with Denzel Washington. I actually quite like the Denzel Washington Equalizer movies very much. They've already tried it with Man from U.N.C.L.E., and I love the results of Man from U.N.C.L.E. They tried it with the old, not Marvel's Avengers, but the Avengers TV series. From so many years ago, they tried doing a movie version of that with Sean Connery, who literally starred in the movie because he lost a bet. And that was terrible. But so we've seen that done a couple of times, and I can't think of any other ones that haven't been done, because the first one I would go to again is Man from U.N.C.L.E., and they've already done that. I hope they make a sequel to that, because I thought the first one with Armie Hammer and Henry Cavill and Hugh, I'm forgetting his name, but anyway, I thought that movie was awesome. I loved it. I hope they do another one sometime. Anyway, thanks for writing in, Lewis. All right, Ben Burnside writes, "Hey, John, I saw the movie Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon the other day. Man, he really killed people. He killed so many people. He might get murdered to the 6th degree." Which one is that? Is that the one he did in like 2012? Let me see, or maybe even 2010, something like that. 2007. 2007. Okay, I remember this one now. Nick Hume is a mild-mannered executive with a perfect life until one gruesome night. This was kind of their Death Wish kind of homage kind of movie. With one gruesome night, he witnesses something that changes him forever. Transformed by grief, Hume eventually comes to the disturbing conclusion that no length is too great when protecting his family. Bum, bum, bum. So you had Kevin, by the way, Kelly Preston was in that, who, of course, John Travolta's wife, who just passed away, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, was also in that. Garrett Hedlund was in that as well. Aisha Tyler, who I love, she's great, was in that as well. And yeah, big body count in that one, Ben. Big body count. All right, next up. A Mischievous Gremlin writes, I like that name. "Hey, John, how's your day going? Going well so far, thank you. If all the movies this year have to delay their movies till next year, is a fear out there that 2021 could become overcrowded?" Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing some movies being, we're going to see a number of 2021 movies get bumped into 2022. I think we're going to see a number of them. Now, that all depends. Like, look, if they can get movie theaters open again by, I don't know, September or October, which is a big question mark. But if they could, then I think you'll see a glut of movies come out, and it will alleviate some of the pressure in 2021. But yeah, at this point, there is going to be some fighting for real estate in 2021 for movies, because a lot of them are going to get bumped. Now, some of the smaller, less significant movies, as the pandemic evolves, may go straight to VOD. Obviously, we're seeing like a Bill and Ted gone to VOD. Trolls World Tour went to VOD. That upcoming Seth Rogen comedy that actually doesn't look that great. But then again, I've seen other Seth Rogen comedies that didn't look that great that I end up loving. So maybe that could happen here. But we're seeing a number of them kind of being ditched off onto streaming right now. So that'll alleviate it a little bit. But yes, it could become a problem. How big of a problem will depend on how much longer this goes on. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's a good observation, Gremlin. It's a good observation. All right. Immature Child of God writes, "Is there anything done in movies that immediately makes it harder for you to enjoy the movie, even if the movie itself is good? For me, I have a tough time enjoying movies that have kid actors and adult themes. Example, The Nice Guys or Good Boys. Thanks." I don't mind that. If it feels like Good Boys to me, right? It was ludicrous, but there also felt like something honest about it. There's something about Good Boys that felt authentic to me. Yes, they went a little bit extreme with it, but it kind of felt authentic to me because I've seen kids that age talk that way, right? So that doesn't bother me at all. I think it's the only thing that really takes me out of movies immediately is when massive cliches are used. When massive cliches are used, sometimes that can take me out a little bit, but it's normally that. As far as themes, no, I'm good. I'm good for the most part. It can come down. Look, one thing cannot turn me off in a movie, but the exact same thing can turn me off in another, depending on how well it's executed. But that comes down to a question of quality. I gotta say, I don't know that there's anything thematically that right off the top, this immediately takes me out of the movie. Maybe there is, and I'm not just thinking of it, but I can't think of one. So anyway, there's that. Anyway, it's a good topic. It's a good question to bring up, man. All right, Clay writes, someone asked about best streaming service, and I have to go with Amazon Prime. The free shipping alone makes it worth the price, plus the added in-streaming service. Well, I mean, but I don't think you can really make that a part of the discussion, because we're talking about exclusively streaming services, right? Listen, I'm an Amazon Prime member because I order a lot of stuff on Amazon, and so the free shipping is exactly why I'm an Amazon Prime member. But the added bonus of being that Prime member is that I get Amazon Prime, the streaming service. So I can get The Boys, and I can get the upcoming Lord of the Rings show, and I can get The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I can get all these great shows that Amazon does. But when comparing them, it's an apples to spaceships comparison to bring in the Amazon free shipping. Yeah, that's a perk, but it has nothing to do with streaming itself. So while I am a big fan of that particular perk, it's not fair to use that in your comparison with other streaming services because we're talking specifically about the streaming service element of it. So I wouldn't bring that in, but I am a big fan, even of just the streaming. I am a big fan of Amazon Prime, Clay. Absolutely. All right. Alex Von Gollum writes, "Hey, Gio. Alan Rickman is in my top 3 favorite actors. No reason he shouldn't be, man. He was a fabulous actor. For you, which is the movie where he gave his best performance? What is your favorite movie he was in?" I think his best performance might have to be Truly, Madly, Deeply. Let me just bring this up for a second. Truly, Madly, Deeply. Let me see if I can find it here. 1990 film in which I believe he won a BAFTA award for acting in that. Let me just bring that up. No, he was nominated for a BAFTA. Alan Rickman was nominated for Best Actor at the BAFTAs. And he won a few other awards for his performance in that. It's probably one of his lesser known films. Let me see if I can bring it up on screen here. It's probably one of his lesser known films. But as far as his pure performance goes, Truly, Madly, Deeply may have been the crown jewel of his acting resume. He was absolutely ludicrously fantastic in it. He really was. As far as my favorite movie of his, it's hard not to say Die Hard. It's hard not to say Die Hard. But I am tempted to say Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I am one of these people that I have a bigger appreciation for the Kevin Costner Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves movies than most people. Granted, I like it more than most people do, but I love that movie. And him as the Sheriff of Nottingham in that is just gold. You, my room, 8, you, 8:30, and bring a friend. Why a spoon, cousin? Because it'll hurt more. Him as the Sheriff of Nottingham kills me. And then, of course, I love him in Galaxy Quest. And then all that's not to mention his work in the Harry Potter movies as well. But I think his best performance was in this little film called Truly, Madly, Deeply. And I'll go with Die Hard, but I'm very, very tempted to say Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves instead. It's close. It's close. But yeah, Alan Rickman was amazing. All right. Brandon Parks writes, "Hello, greatness. My favorite villain is Apocalypse, and hope they can adapt the Age of Apocalypse comic series. Who is your favorite villain that you want to see in a movie?" Well, I mean, they already tried doing Apocalypse, and it's all subjective. Some people very, very much like X-Men Apocalypse. I was quite disappointed. I didn't hate the movie. Don't get me wrong. It's got its upsides. There's good things in that movie. But overall, I was disappointed because Age of Apocalypse is also my all-time favorite comic book storyline. My favorite, like, kind of one-shot is The Dark Knight, but The Dark Knight Returns, like most people will say, that's kind of stereotypical, but it's true. But my all-time favorite storyline, like overarching storyline, is Age of Apocalypse. And so I had such high hopes. And I didn't expect them to have a beat-for-beat thing of Age of Apocalypse at all. I understood it was going to be a different movie, but I love the Apocalypse character. And Sabah, I was really looking forward to it, and I got to admit I was quite disappointed. So they've already kind of done it. As far as most movie villains I would want to see, look, my all-time favorite comic book character at all is Magneto. Not just my favorite comic book villain. Magneto is my favorite comic book character, period, end, stop. But they've done a lot with Magneto. So pretty much everybody that I'd really want to see, they've already done as far as villains go. I'm totally cool with a lot of other villains they can do, but as far as my favorite ones go, they've already kind of covered them. And who knows? Maybe they'll redeem the Apocalypse one at some point. Maybe Marvel, now that they've got X-Men, maybe they'll take another shot at Apocalypse, or they'll take another shot at Sabah and they'll do something a little bit better with it. So we'll see. All right, Rob Tari writes, I'm over 80s nostalgia with movies and TV shows. It worked for Stranger Things because it felt organic. But now when I see a project set in that decade, I roll my eyes. I feel like filmmakers only use it for the cliche songs and Spielberg Hughes references. Well, I mean, I don't know that I agree. I mean, there's a lot of based on true story movies that get done that were set in the 80s. So they do them and they set them in the 80s. And that is very organic and feels real. So I don't mind, but listen, any movie can too rely on their gimmick. Gimmick is not a dirty word. Gimmick is fine. But when you don't execute your gimmick or you're over reliant on your gimmick, that can be distracting. And certainly there's been a number of projects done set in the 80s that way over relied on the gimmick of the 80s. One that kind of did it, but still worked really well was Hot Tub Time Machine. Hot Tub Time Machine still worked real super well. Anyway, that aside. But when it's done, like you said, organically, it's done because that is actually the era that these events happen, you know. For Wonder Woman 84, they need her at that place in time for this particular story, right? So I'm cool with it if you don't over rely on the gimmick and you execute it well, it can work. But if you do over rely on the gimmick, it becomes just like what you're saying. It becomes nothing but a way to do homage to old songs and blah, blah. Look, everybody, Elf, you know, and then it becomes a real pain. It really does. But if it's done right, it can be really cool. All right, next up, Kevin Rubio. Our friend Kevin Rubio writes in, I totally disagree with the Superman 2 ending assessment. He doesn't break his bones. The guy breaks his own hand against Cal's chest, but he knew that's what was going to happen. Cal's main purpose for being there was to pay for the damages. All Cal did was push him across a counter. Oh, no, Kevin. He didn't just push him across the counter. He went flying across the room as fast as visual effects would allow them and went crashing into a pinball machine that knocked him out. He was probably concussed, and throwing him through the glass in that pinball machine could very well have killed him. And Superman is fast enough that he knew this guy was going to break his, because the guy thought he was standing in front of a regular mortal being. Superman easily could have moved out of the way, but he didn't. He let this guy throw a punch against what is essentially a concrete wall and broke his hand. And he totally did that on purpose. Superman totally did that on purpose and let him do that knowing exactly what was going to happen to the guy's hand. Because he doesn't know it, but I'm Superman. And then he throws him across the room through a pinball machine, knocked him out, clearly probably concussed him, could have killed him. Could have killed him. So, yeah, I'm sorry, Kev, buddy, but I do not agree with your position on that. I think that is an overly rose-colored glasses kind of position on that. And remember, that's all happening right after he kills a powerless Zod. So I don't know, man. I don't know, Kev. All right, next up, Dan Ketchum writes, off topic, but during pandemic lockdown, have played more online chess than I have since college. I've probably played more online poker than not real money poker, just, you know, fun poker online. Anyway. You think I'd be getting better, but I'm actually getting worse. If the lockdown lasts much longer, a 3-year-old will be able to beat me. You know what, Dan, here, that's the funny thing. Sometimes, you know, you hear UFC fighters talk about this too. Sometimes you train, you get better. But if you overtrain, you'll become a detriment to yourself. That's why, you know, somebody else wrote in a question the other day asking about, hey, should studios be using the lockdown to work more on CGI of their upcoming movies? No, when you're done, you're done. Walk away from it, because working on it too much starts to detract from the quality of it. So I can see maybe you're playing a little bit too much chess, particularly if you're just playing online. Playing online may be hurting your game a little bit. But I don't play chess, so I don't really know. I'm talking out of my ass, Dan. Hey, as long as you're having fun, that's all that matters. All right. Last question we're asked today, and then we're out of time. TJ Ninja writes, you say Henry Cavill is your favorite Superman, but is Man of Steel your favorite Superman movie? Yes. Man of Steel is my favorite Superman movie. Which is clear, because I have a top 10 best comic book movies of all time list, and Man of Steel is on it. And I have no other Superman movies on it. I have a deep appreciation for the original Superman, and especially for Superman 2, even with Superman beating up a mortal guy at the end. But I love Superman 2. But yes, Man of Steel is my favorite Superman movie of all time. All right, there's still a few questions left here, like from an anonymous viewer, Alex Von Gollum, James Argenta, and a few others. Do not worry, guys. Tomorrow, I'm going to do an open mic because tomorrow is Saturday. Yes, tomorrow I'm going to do an open mic, and we will start off open mic with your questions that were still left. But we have to keep the show under 2 hours because YouTube cuts it off if I don't. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here and making this show a part of your day, my friends. Don't forget, we will be back again tomorrow. Guys, while you're here, click on that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to the show. Click the thumbs up button. Leave a comment or thought on any of the things we talked about here today. And a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in the live questions. Number one, because you gave us fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported the channel while you did it. And all of us here, thank you for that. So don't forget, guys, open mic tomorrow. That will do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. My name is John Campea. Until next time, my friends, bye-bye.